Hi there, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm sharing this embossed and watercolored background card that features simple sentiments. Sometimes all you need for a card is the greeting and a really striking background. In fact, there are no other embellishments on this card. It really doesn't need them. This is the new Cosmos background, brand new, part of the Love release from Simon Says Stamp that just came out here at the end of January. And the Here For You sentiment, die cut sentiment, is also from that same release. And the You Got This greeting is from just a couple releases back. So everything is fairly recent. But this card takes really minimal supplies to create a stunning card. And you could do this with all kinds of different backgrounds. I am using the rubber side of the Tim Holtz stamp platform to stamp this new Cosmos background floral design stamp on some Bristol Smooth cardstock using the Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink. This ink, I have really been loving it lately. It's really juicy ink pad, and I have found I've got fantastic results. I think it's really kind of hard to see the ink. I was trying to kind of hold it at an angle to show you, but I don't think it's very successful with the camera here. I'm going to take Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder now and sprinkle this onto my background. Now, I tried to use a coffee filter, but sometimes with a huge background like this, and the background is even trimmed down a little smaller than standard A2 size. It's 4 inches by 5 1/4. Even at that, I'm getting embossing powder everywhere. I did try to tap off most of the excess into my coffee filter, and then I'm able to put any of that remaining excess embossing powder right back into the container. Here is that background. When I hold it at an angle, you can see it's extremely detailed. So pretty. I love backgrounds like this. So many ways to use backgrounds like this. I am going to be doing one of my favorite techniques, which is coloring in embossed images with my Zig Clean Color Real brush markers and a water brush pen. A lot of times, if I am needing a quick and easy card, I will go back to a technique or a particular kind of style that I know I really love, something that I know is successful. And that way I'm able to complete a card in a lot less time. So for me, it's always great to kind of revisit those things that I know I really love and something that is just really fun for me. And coloring with the zigs and the water brush pen here just make me so super happy. So one of my favorite things. Now, as I start to color this in, I think it's a lot easier to see the background. It is very difficult to see right off the bat. White on white just does not translate very well, especially for video. What I like to do, because even not on video, it's a little hard to see, is start with one flower or in one area, depending on what the image is, and work my way out from there. So instead of maybe doing all the light blue flower, which would have been easy, I wouldn't have had to clean off my water brush pen continuously. Skipping around sometimes creates mistakes. So I find it a lot easier to really see where I'm going and see what I'm doing. And you can see I had to get kind of close there to make sure I got the flower petals for these yellow flowers, is get one flower and just kind of start moving out from there. Once you have maybe some of the design colored in, it is a little easier to maybe move around a little bit, and you could do several of one color of flower all at once. I decided to go with a blue and yellow background. This is one of my favorites. With Valentine's coming up, I'm a little Valentined out already, if that's even possible, because I'm a huge pink and red fan. I just felt like this card really, the blues spoke to me, especially with the greeting that I was using. The Here For You sentiment and then the other greeting from You Got This. I really liked this background. For me, it was very calming, very soothing, and that's definitely what I wanted to translate here. So sometimes take your cues from the sentiments maybe that you're using for the design. And truly, this is a background that works for everything. Do pink and red for this and put a fun Valentine's greeting on top. You could create a beautiful, simple Valentine's with just this background and a sentiment. So I think that would be incredible as well. I would love to see this maybe just in all kinds of colors, very more of a rainbow effect maybe, if you will. So very, very bright and colorful with all the colors represented. Any color combination that speaks to you, whatever that might be, and any coloring medium that speaks to you. If you want to use traditional watercolors, distress markers, other kinds of watercoloring mediums, I think there's just so many ways to color this in and really show off the beauty of this Cosmos background stamp. Now, when I started, I did sort of leave the center of some of my flowers open. I wasn't really sure. I kind of thought I'd go back in with a contrasting color, maybe even some greens or yellow, or I didn't know. And as I was coloring, I thought, you know, I think that's going to be distracting. And so I went back in with the darker of the two colors that I used, or even for the lighter blue flower, I pulled in the blue marker instead of the cobalt blue, which is the darkest in that lighter blue flower, and went ahead and colored them very monochromatic. And I think the flowers are much more effective this way, especially with putting a very delicate, detailed sentiment on top. And where I'm coloring in this background, I really wanted to make sure that my sentiment was still easy to read. And in order to create that, I really felt like kind of keeping more monochromatic would help with that endeavor. So now I have my flowers colored. Many, many times when I am coloring in a background like this, I choose to go with blue for filling in my background. I am a huge fan of filling in the background because I find that it really makes the flowers pop. So while this is stunning and beautiful, that white background and the white embossing, sometimes the flowers get lost into the background. So I really do like to add some color, and truly the background for this stamp is very minimal. However, I wanted to color it in. I did not want to use blue because I used blue for my flowers. I wanted to do something different, and I was really, my initial thought was to go black, dark gray, and I chose my gray Zig Clean Color Real Brush marker and watered it down. I like to scribble it on an acrylic block, water it down with water from my water brush pen. You could use a paintbrush dipped in water if you wanted to as well. And I'm simply painting in all of those little open areas. And look at how the flowers are popping off that background now. I am really thrilled with how this gray looks with my colors of flowers. It's still soft enough that it's not distracting, but it is bold enough or dark enough that it helps those flowers come to life. I like to add a fair amount of water for this step just because I really want it watered down. And I'm just moving my way around the design, filling in all of these little areas. If any colors bleed, just try to pick them up with your paintbrush and wipe them away. I tend to not worry too much about that. It's a very busy background. It's all colored in. Most of those little imperfections will not even show. Then I like to let this sit and completely air dry. It does not take very long. I even already had a scrap of white cardstock adhered to fun foam with Stick It that I used to die cut the new Simon Says stamp Here For You greeting. It is super duper delicate, but look how great it is popping out of that fun foam. I'm using the Spellbinders Tool-in-One to pop these little areas out of the loops of my sentiment. And then I am going to just simply pop my greetings in place right over the background here, kind of in the upper half of the card. And I decided to leave them white. I really felt the more simple approach was the better approach for this particular card. With the white embossing, it really ties into the white sentiment. If you wanted it to be a little bit more bold, try dark gray or black instead of the white cardstock adhered. I like these on Fun Foam because that slight dimension helps pop this off of the background so easily, excuse me. So here is the Here For You sentiment. I think the Take Care sentiment that is the same style would be amazing. You could create a whole set of cards using Simon Says Stamp sentiments. Then on a scrap of black cardstock, I am stamping the rest of my greeting for my card that says everything will be okay. I think these are the great kind of cards. These are the kinds of cards that we tend to need so many times and maybe don't have on hand because they're not the most fun to make simply because of the subject matter. But I think they're the kinds of cards that we need to have on hand. They're great to make when you don't have to have it, when you're not emotionally connected to why you're having to make that card, I guess is what I want to say. These are the kinds of things that I like having on hand so I don't even have to think about it. When somebody is hurting, when somebody is needing that encouragement or needing to know that you're thinking about them, I already have that card. It's already in my stash. All I have to do is grab it, write them a message, and send it in the mail. And this is a great one to send in the mail because it is relatively flat. I put a little piece of score tape on the back of my greeting strip here. I did trim it into a thin strip. I stamped and embossed that on black cardstock. Pop that right underneath. Push the dimensional greeting down nice and flat. And then I'm simply going to attach this to a white top fold card base to finish the card. There is no other embellishment needed for this. The flowers are definitely the focal point and that sentiment that tells the recipient that you are there for them. Thanks for joining me today for this embossed and watercolored background card with simple sentiments. The supplies I used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards featuring Simon Says Stamps and Dies that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.